Internet, my name is Peridiam, and welcome to 5 times Survivor Players Made Underrated Dumb Moves 3.0. You know I'm taking it serious when I don't have any jokes in the intro. We're going big for this first one, big game hunting. I am treading on sacred ground with what I'm about to say, but damn it, I need to talk about it because I didn't love it when it aired, and looking back over 5 years later, I still don't like it. Everybody hold on to your butts because this first move is from Season 34 Game Changers, and it is at the final 8 when Cirie chooses to vote out Andrea over Brad, which in turn gets the ball rolling on her eventual ouster from the game. While yes, Cirie was gonna have as tricky a time navigating her way to the final 3 as she did on that balance beam, it's gotta be said that the move to take out Andrea was probably the worst move Cirie has ever made in her time playing Survivor. The split vote in Heroes vs. Villains was more JT dipping into his villain side than Cirie messing up. But in the case of Game Changers, Cirie was working with Andrea, she had a relationship with her, she was using her as a shield. It's gotta be said, Andrea had a lot of people wanting to target her, and Cirie had the power to keep her in the game. Only when Sarah duped Cirie into believing cutting Andrea was the right move did it all go south. Cirie cut a shield of hers loose a few rounds too early, because Cirie wasn't working with Brad or Troy or Ty, and so cutting Andrea was putting all her trust in Sarah, giving Sarah all the power in the world to dupe the other side. Cirie had Michaela, she had Aubrey, she even had Andrea, so keep Sarah on side and cut out the players she's not working with whatsoever. Andrea was going to take Cirie to the final 4, but instead Culpepper went on an immunity streak, and Sarah continued to finesse the cast as the rogue mercenary she was playing as. Cirie had the power to keep the momentum in her corner, and she willingly ceded it to Sarah. And even Cirie has admitted this was probably her worst move. Cirie gets a lot of love from yours truly and from the community, and just for a minute, I gotta point out this blemish on an otherwise impressive resume.
Andrea is trying to work me like I'm a cheap suit, trying to hint around about Sarah. Should Sarah and I get rid of Andrea and drop our numbers down, or keep our 5 strong and go for Brad? Timing is key here.
13th person voted out and the 6th member of our jury. Andrea, that's 5, that's enough. Need to bring me your torch.
But you know what? Nobody's perfect. Not even the woman who duped Cirie, the player who's often regarded as the greatest player to never win. Not even Sarah, who masterfully diced her way to the win that season, is a perfect player. And so, let's talk for a minute about a questionable call in Sarah's game from Season 40, Winners at War. Now, I recently talked about this in a video about choking the game, and this is another instance of just an underrated dumb move. Deep in this season, at the final 5, we have Sarah, Tony, Ben, Natalie, and Michelle. And Tony wins immunity, and Natalie has a known idol, meaning the votes are going to Ben and Michelle. Tony and Ben are voting Michelle, Natalie and Michelle are voting for Ben, and so Sarah is the swing vote. Who should she vote out? As we saw in the season, Sarah votes out Ben after he throws in the towel, but I would argue this was very clearly the wrong move to make, as it greatly reduced her chance to win the game. I also kind of feel like this doesn't really need that much foresight to realize this is what should be done. If you think about it, had Sarah voted out Michelle, Sarah is almost certainly in the final tribal no matter who wins the final challenge. All 3 players would take her, and only so long as Tony doesn't win the fire making, Sarah's $2 million richer. But Natalie, who won the immunity challenge, was now incentivized to take Michelle to the final tribal because Michelle was her ally. I'm actually kind of shocked Sarah made this move to oust Ben, especially given Ben wasn't such a bad fire maker. While not the best in the show's history, he clearly was capable, and I would bet he beats Tony. Also, Tony probably should have voted Ben out instead of trying to keep him, but, you know, thankfully for him, Sarah was one step ahead and behind.
What an absolute disaster. Since I don't see those 3 cracking on each other, I am the obvious target tonight.
If you want to put my name down, use that as your resume and win it, I'm for it. No, I'm serious though.
But in order for me to even have a shot, I have to make a move. And I have to make a move without Tony.
18th person voted out of Survivor, Winners at War. Ben. Ooh.
The third move on this list is so baffling, I can't even. Sometimes I can, and this time I just can't. Season 36, Ghost Island. At the merge vote, we see Chris Noble, the noble one, the one and only. He gets a hidden idol that's got a time limit on it, a shelf life. It's only good for 2 tribal councils. Chris doesn't win immunity, but is leading the charge against Dom and Wendell, the 2 guys he believes are on the outs. In truth, Dom and Wendell were far from on the outs, but Chris was kind of lost in the sauce, dreaming of his Ponderosa music video, so what happens? First of all, Chris's number 1 enemy, Dom, plays an advantage, the legacy advantage, that keeps him safe from being voted out. Second, Chris had actually lost his vote at the big twist of the season, Ghost Island, so he didn't have a say in the final outcome beyond his social influence leading up to it. Third, as I just said, his idol was only good for 2 tribals, meaning if he didn't play it at this one, he was gonna play it at the next. But given Dom and Wendell were the 2 guys on the outs in his mind, and given Dom was now safe after playing the legacy advantage, and given he, Chris, didn't have a vote, you would think Chris would, probably play his idol to keep himself safe just in case anything weird happened. The merge is a tenuous spot in the game because you don't always know where you stand until the votes come down. And in Chris's case, he chose not to play his very limited idol and was promptly voted out in a landslide 10-2 vote. Chris never even cast a vote all season given he never went to tribal in the pre-merge, and maybe that contributed to this, but either way, wow, I hope his hip-hop career takes off after this.
Maybe if I am uncertain, I should use the idol. But at the same time, my game could last a lot longer if I can just get through this one tribal and use it at the next one.
Jeff, it's so crazy that this is open discussion.
But,
Sorry.
Now that you and I are finally here together, I'm cool with it being a showdown. At the end of the day, I still think there's key alliances, true relationships, but most importantly, trusting your gut instinct. And I will continue to trust my gut instinct.
This is the Sierra Dawn Thomas legacy advantage. This allows me to play immunity at 13 people left in the game, or 6. I'm playing it tonight for myself at 13.
I'll read the votes. Chris, 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 Chris. That's 5 votes, Chris. Chris. That's 6 votes, Chris. 8th person voted out, the first member of our jury. Chris.
Number 4 is a series of dumb moves that set up the frontrunner of the season to lose it all in one episode. From Season 7, Pearl Islands. I am talking about Burton in the Final 5. To set the stage, going into this Final 5, you had 2 strong duos in Burton and Lil, and then Burton and Fairplay, followed by a Final 4 alliance of Burton, Lil, Fairplay, and Dara. Sandra is on the outs, and probably the next to go. And on paper, it should seem like Burton is primed to win. He has the physically strongest, had the most strategic connections, and yet by the end of the episode, he would be the one voted out. Many would cite his poor strategic decision to take Fairplay on the reward with him that episode, leaving the 3 women back at camp to scheme and plot behind his back. And while that was a questionable call, it's important to note that Burton didn't choose Lil, but instead wanted to leave her back at camp because he felt like he could trust her implicitly. For context, they were both outcasts who were voted out pre-merge and won their way back into the game at the merge. They swore to take each other to the final 2 and would never turn on each other. So after Burton won the reward challenge this episode and had to pick somebody to take with him, only one person of the 4, he believed leaving Lil back at the camp was the smarter move because he trusted Lil more. They had this outcast pact. The problem though was that right before the reward challenge, Burton approached Lil about turning on Dara, a member of their Final 4 alliance, and Lil was all about that Scout's honor. She didn't want to break her word if she didn't have to, and because Burton was complicating the plot, she now began to wonder if Burton might even turn on her if need be. And then Burton won the reward challenge, took Fairplay with him on a guy's night out, they laughed into the moonlight, and all the while Lil was left stewing, feeling bad for Dara, knowing Burton was gonna clip her around early. This led to Lil taking matters into her own hands and deciding to work with Dara and Sandra to flip the script on the guys. Once Burton gets back from the reward, he can tell Lil is acting off. She says she didn't strategize with the women, but he doesn't buy that she never did that whatsoever with Sandra. But to make matters worse, Dara wins her 3rd immunity in a row, so all that plotting to get Dara out at the beginning of the episode was now for nothing. It actually was about to cost Burton the game, as his timing could not have been more off. He really needed to wait until after he knew he could turn on Dara to make the move, but instead pulled the trigger too early. And then, because Dara was safe, and because he was losing trust with Lil, he instead decided to target Lil and tried to work with Sandra, of all people, and get her to vote out Lil. Sandra was just not interested in that scheme at all, and yet Burton's entire game hinged on the one player he was voting out coming into this episode, turning around and saving his life. From throwing a challenge in the pre-merge and getting voted out by his own tribe in a blindside, to returning back into the game at the merge, to now this fateful final five. Oh, how the turntables have turned yet again. Walk the plank, Bert.
John and Burton said, we're going to get rid of Dara next because she's such a threat. And I thought, oh, this is not right. I don't like this. We made a pact. So I started thinking, if they can screw her over, they can screw me over.
Well, let me tell you something, little one. They're ready to get rid of you.
And it pissed me off that these two boys were so easy to break their alliance.
Are we worried about the girls strategizing against us?
No,
I feel like we were pretty confident in our abilities.
Yeah, I think we can squash their plans pretty quickly.
John and I have been running the show for the last 20 days nearly, and those three girls, I don't think they could come up with a decent strategy if they had to.
She hasn't tried to strategize?
Nope. They're taking a bath. She wouldn't even come by us.
Well, she had to have said, let's vote Burton out or John out.
No, she didn't.
Still not exactly buying what the girls are selling. I don't know if I can trust them. The way John and I are seeing it, if we can get Sandra to vote with us to get Lil off, I think it'll be a pretty good move.
Well, I wouldn't worry if I were you, because I'm going to write Lil's name down big. If that's what's going to save me, then so be it.
It's very cut and dry with Sandra. There's no, well, I have feelings for this person, or I don't know if we should do that. She doesn't care. She goes, if I'm staying in the game, I'll vote for him.
He was like, swear on your kids. So I said, I swear on my kids. And in my head and mumbling under my breath, I was like, I swear on my kids that I'm going to screw you and Burton.
12th person voted out of the tribe.
Last but not least, as always, let's see if we can make sense of what the heck happens at the final 7 of Season 10 Palau, when inexplicably the Women's Alliance goes up in flames, all because seemingly none of them want to win, despite all talking about the exact path they need to take. The women were up in numbers 4-3, and the three guys were all really strong. Tom, Ian, and Greg could easily run the table at the challenges, which they did, and the women knew one of these guys was most likely going to win if something wasn't done. A women's alliance was then floated around at the top of the episode to take out Tom next if he wasn't immune. And then when Tom lost immunity later in the episode, you would have to think he should be going. Everyone knew he was the frontrunner to win. He was the physically strongest in the entire cast. He was the man to beat. And for a second, he was beaten. He was exposed. So why is it that Stephanie gets the boot instead in a unanimous 6-1 vote? And why did Steph vote for Karen when it seemed like the plan was for her to at least vote for Tom? The answer to both questions is because Karen sucks. Or at least, that's the theory. After digging a little deeper into trying to understand Karen's move this round, I came around the other end a little worse for wear. Basically, what we saw in the episode was that Katie wanted to work with the women, but Karen liked Tom so much that she exposed this to him, and that led to the Women's Alliance blowing up. But hold on, when I dug deeper into postseason interviews, it turns out Karen actually wanted this alliance before even Katie did. Karen pitched it first, but Katie wasn't so sure about it. She entertained it, but it wasn't for sure the plan she wanted to go with. Steph was clearly on board, and Jen seemed malleable, at least to get Tom out. It wasn't Greg. But the problem is that Karen decided to not only float the alliance, but also then inexplicably blow it up. Because she's not confident that she can work with these women, least of all Katie, her biggest nemesis of the season. Karen decides to go from working with the women to straight up telling Tom about the entire plan to oust him. The plan she enacted. Tom is miffed to hear this, but not because the women were targeting him, but because Karen is telling him this in the first place. Tom is like, why is she telling me this? Even though he has a budding strategic relationship with her, he's also clearly aware that Karen is tanking her game by being honest with him here. And he's happy to oblige, but also wary, because what does Karen have to gain by telling him about this plan? Tom then tells Ian about the plan, who tells Katie that he knows about the plan, which basically means there's now no shot the women are getting together, because Karen got paranoid and blew it up for seemingly no good reason. Because Karen sucks.
All the women together.
Would you really want to do that to Fred?
Considering it.
Who would be the first one you'd want off?
It's just too strong.
As soon as he doesn't have immunity, you should probably try to get him off.
No matter how threatening you think I am, those 3 men are more threatening. Those guys will take you out.
So what would you rather do? Stick with the women and take out the men?
There's 4 of us and 3 of them, and now's the time to do it. I mean, I don't have like the word alliance with anybody. I'm watching out for Tom. Tom is watching out for me.
What do the girls think?
Trying to figure out which guy to take out.
And why are you telling me as opposed to siding with the girls? Just a little wary of why Karen's giving me the information. You know, she'd be better off holding on to that information and just surprising me.
Karen's kind of telling stories to everybody and trying to get away into a situation where she can be on top.
Karen went back and told Tom that I was planning to get all the women, which is not what I was doing. I was just entertaining the thought.
I think I'm screwed because I think Ian told Katie that I'm playing probably both sides of the fence, and so I might be in trouble.
12th person voted out and the 3rd member of our jury.
And those are 5 times Survivor players made underrated dumb moves 3.0. As always, let me know what you think about these moves and if there are any others you would want me to consider talking about in the future. A big thank you to my patrons for demonstrating your support. You could have gone anywhere. You could have gone back to Tom. You could have gone to Karen's Patreon for all I know, but you're here. Thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to not blow up your only winning scenario on your way out, and I will see you in the next one. Once I relish in the fact that Karen is the only player named Karen to ever play Survivor, and she really Karen'd it up.
Karen's really annoying because she has not stopped talking about how this island sucks and how everyone didn't want to come here. She just comes up to me and she's like, "Do you have a problem with me?" And I'm like, "What?" And I started laughing because she was so irate. And then she went off and she left. She's bouncing around. Like, I couldn't stop laughing. She's crazy. She's completely lost it. We can't get a female alliance together because Karen sucks.
Camp Karor had craft day. Well, just Katie. Everybody else was working. Didn't help with the fire. Didn't go hunt. Didn't go do anything. But she made necklaces, God love her.
What is her role here? I don't know.